here, now a LinkedIn top voice, very excited, found out this week. And this is the first LinkedIn Live of 2024. Woohoo, we made it, Sam. And I think we're in a really interesting time when it comes to building our personal brands and how we communicate our voice, whether we're an employee or own our own business. And I met Sam I think it was a year ago. I don't know where time is going anymore, maybe more at a mastermind. And she just, when it comes to communication and being able to really use words in a very effective way to get a point across, to build a brand. I mean, she's masterful at it. And so, Sam, thank you so much for being here today. I would love for you to first just introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about your amazing background, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good, Rachel. It's and I hope people have paper and pen, because you and I both really focus on tangible takeaways that people can immediately apply in their life to stand out. So how about a 2-minute background, and we'll jump in with some how-to tips people can apply immediately. Sound good?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I helped start and run the Maui Writers Conference. And for 17 years, we did something that was unprecedented at the time. You could jump the chain of command and pitch directly to the top decision makers in the industry. You could pitch your screenplay to Ron Howard. I mean, you could pitch your book to the head of Simon & Schuster. It's just never been done before. And yet the very first round of pitch sessions, a woman came out afterwards with tears in her eyes. And I went over, I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "I just saw my dream go down the drain." And I said, "What happened?" And she said, "I put my 300-page manuscript on the table. The editor took one look at it, said, I don't have time to read all that. Tell me in 60 seconds what your book is about and why someone would want to read it." And she said, "My mind went blank. I thought it was my job to write it. I thought it was their job to sell it." And, that's what we've discovered, is that when someone works for an organization, it's like we think our hard work speaks for itself. Or if we have a business and we're really good at what we do, we think that people will discover that and reward that. And so there's a second part of that story that has led to all my work, whether it's pop or got your attention. It's how can we be one of a kind instead of one of many, so that people actually do notice us and are impressed with us and want to hire us or promote us or work with us. So you want the second half of that story?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I talked with Bob Loomis, who is senior vice president of Random House at that point. And I said, "Bob, what is going on with these pitch sessions?" And he said, "Sam, we've seen thousands of proposals. We make up our mind in the first 60 seconds whether something is commercially viable." And I stood in the back of the room and I watched people pitch that next day, and I could predict who is getting a deal without hearing a word being said, based on one thing. You know what it was? The decision maker's eyebrows.
Ooh.
Because if someone was describing their project and the decision maker's eyebrows were crunched up, it meant they were confused.
Right.
Confused people don't say yes. Now, if their eyebrows were unmoved, it meant they were unmoved, or they'd had Botox. Now, if the eyebrows were up, it meant they were intrigued. Like everyone watching right now, just lift your eyebrows. Oh, do you feel engaged, intrigued, like you want to know more? That means we just got what we care about in their mental door. So what we're going to talk about today, whether you work at a corporate job, an association, you have your own business, what is something you care about? Are you interviewing for a position, or are you competing for a contract, or are you giving a presentation, or are you pitching your book? How can you, in 60 seconds, get your eyebrows up so you stand out of the crowd instead of get lost in the crowd?
Ooh, you should just, stand out authority. You're already creating copy for us, Sam. You're already just so good. Okay. So if 60 seconds, arguably less, because people are making an impression of you in less than 1 second.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just the words you say, it's the whole thing.
That's right. Okay, you want a wonderful example of how to do it, and then we'll unpack it so your viewers can do it? Okay, now let's start so that this is irrelevant and useful for everyone watching, listening. What is something you care about? Something you're going to request, something you're going to recommend, something that you're going to suggest, something that you're going to ask, right? So what's something you care about? You're going to walk into a meeting, you're going to walk into with a decision maker, you're going to ask for funding or something like that. Have that in mind. Listen to this story, and then we're going to unpack the steps on how in under 60 seconds you can get those eyebrows up. So the 90-second backstory is that I was also the pitch coach for Springboard Enterprises, which has helped entrepreneurs generate $27 billion in funding. This is Robin Chase of Zipcar, Gail Goodman of Constant Contact. So one of my clients came to me. She said, well, Sam, I got good news and I got bad news. I said, what's the good news? She said, I'm speaking in front of a room full of investors in New York. I said, that's great. What's the bad news? She said, I'm going at 2:30 and I only have 10 minutes. She said, you can't say anything in 10 minutes. And I said, Kathleen, you don't have 10 minutes. You have 60 seconds, right? Here's what we came up with that not only won her millions of dollars in funding, she was Business Week's most promising social entrepreneur of that year. Okay, under 60 seconds. Ready, go?
Ready.
Okay. Did you know there are 1.8 billion vaccinations given every year? Did you know up to a third of them are given with reused needles? Did you know we're spreading and perpetuating the very diseases we're trying to prevent? Imagine if there were a painless one-use needle for a fraction of the current cost. You don't have to imagine it. We're doing it, and she's off and running. Now, let's compare this. If you're taking notes, put a vertical line right down the center. And over on the left-hand column, put the word tell. Because from now on, do not tell people what you're going to tell them and then tell them and then tell them what we told them. That's what we've been taught. And it's a prescription for being a bore, snore, or chore. Over on the right, put ask. Ask 3 did you know questions with startling statistics about how bad it was, or about how many people are being affected, or the trend is getting worse. You can find those statistics online. Just put into Google, what are startling statistics about blank, and put in your industry or the problem you're solving or the issue you're addressing. So now Kathleen Callender, she was in charge of PharmaJet. And PharmaJet, do you know how she used to explain what she did? By telling people she's a medical delivery device for subcutaneous inoculations. It's a what? Look at those eyebrows, Rachel. So do you see how, did you know this? People are going, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. Look at those eyebrows. Mm-hmm. Now, step 2, write down the word imagine. Because when you say imagine this and imagine this and imagine this, what are 3 benefits of what it is you're proposing? What are 3 advantages of what it is you're recommending? You know, how's it going to save them money? How's it going to save them time? How's it going to make them happier? How's it going to make them happy? Because when you go imagine this, people are thinking, sounds pretty good.
Right.
Step 3, write down these words. You don't have to imagine it. We're doing it, and now come in with your precedents and evidence to show this isn't speculative. This is a done deal, and you're ready to deliver it. All that in 60 seconds. Everyone else is over there explaining, telling infobesity, and you're the one who got those eyebrows up and stood out.
Ooh, okay. So we're getting intrigue by telling and asking, right? So
That's
looking
correct.
up some cool stat, something to really draw in attention. Then you say, you don't have to imagine it. Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. The 3 did you know questions, or did you know this is happening? Did you know this many people are being affected? Do you know it costs this much? Do you know that it takes, a week to do this? Did you know that many people are suffering the consequences? So the whole question, especially if you're dealing with a jaded audience, a group of experts who think they know everything, see, their mental arms are crossed. They're thinking, I've already made up my mind. This isn't interesting to me. This isn't relevant. Our whole goal is to surprise them with something they didn't know to get our foot in their mental door. And then 3 imagines, we'll imagine if that, that it could be done in this amount of time. And imagine if it could cost this instead of this. Imagine if people could figure out how to do it and so forth. And they're going, once again, I would like that. And then the imagine, and now, boy, they're ready to hear what you have to say instead of deciding from the get-go. They're not interested.
Yeah. I think this is a really simple and easy approach that isn't just for really pitching, right? When I think about this, when I was doing so much recruiting, especially during my MBA, and there was, you're at a career fair, Sam, and everybody's lining up and the recruiter is there and they're tired. And every person usually says, hey, I'm Rachel Lee. And then they go into, I did my undergrad here, blah, 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 the whole resume. And it's like boring.
I am so glad you brought that up. So I get to share a little Elon Musk story about how if we are at a career fair or if we are up for promotion and they got a lot of people to pick from, or we're interviewing for a job and maybe we don't have the exact credentials they're looking for. So here's the story and then what we can do if we're in that situation and we are looking for a next position or a promotion or once again, a contract. Is that I had a chance to see Elon Musk speak at the National Press Club. Well, my son works in NASA. And I said, so Tom, if I have a chance to ask Elon Musk a question, what should it be? He said, Mom, my job is safe because I'm with the ISS, but everyone with the space shuttle was laid off and they're all applying to SpaceX. Ask Elon how they can get an interview and how they can land a job. I had an opportunity to ask him that question. He gave one of the most brilliant answers I have ever heard. In one sentence, he said, don't tell me about the positions you've held. Tell me about the problems you've solved. So see, if we're at a career fair, instead of saying, well, I did this and I did this, I did this, we are just like everyone else who's giving a listicle of positions. If we've done our homework, say, well, I saw in your job description that you were looking for someone who's a self-starter. Well, at my previous job, I noticed this, and my team and I initiated a new system that actually prevented that from happening. Do you see how no one else is saying that? No one else is giving a real life example of a problem you solved that is relevant to them. You just stood out from the crowd and you made yourself the kind of potential employee they're looking for because you're already talking about how you could contribute to their team and organization instead of what you've just done in the past.
It's such a phenomenal example because I think so often because I work with so much of the, career folks and job seekers, they're not paying attention to the company and who they're talking to, your audience, Sam.
Yeah.
And it's always about me. And it's like, no. Like, I want you to know, how are you going to help me, my company? Mm-hmm. And that's such a miss that people aren't understanding. And it's not just in interviewing, it's in marketing, it's in speaking. It's not really knowing who your audience is and uniquely what you can do to help them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's such a miss.
I'm just so glad you're bringing this up because I was hired by Silicon Valley Corporation, a Fortune 500 company, about personal branding because I'm a LinkedIn top voice in personal branding and communication. And when they announced that I was going to be doing a program on personal branding, someone on their Slack channel put in, you brand cattle, you don't brand people. So they knew they were going to get some resistance to this program. So I asked to interview several of the executives and I said, all right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. If there is a resistance to this topic, then what do you see people in your organization doing that are actually sabotaging their career success? And I'll always remember one individual said, we were opening up our office in France. I had a woman on my team who had been a foreign exchange student. She spoke fluent French, and she was still in touch with her French friends and families and so forth. She would have been perfect for that job. So when we were sitting with the executive committee, I threw her name in the ring, and everyone looked at me and said, "Who?" And I'm going to make up her name. He said, "Well, Sarah." And they said, "Who?" And he said, "Sarah, she's been on our team. She really does." They did not, one of them finally said, "Oh, yeah, she's in some of my meetings, but she never says anything." And he said, "She didn't get that job." And I said, "Did you say anything to her about this?" And he said, "Yeah, I called her into my office and I said, 'Why aren't you speaking up in meetings?' He said, 'Don't you understand that if you're not contributing anything, they don't think you have anything to contribute?'" And she said, "I tried." She said, "It's just a jockeying match. So and so will say something and so will interrupt and take credit for the idea. I bring up something, they ignore me. 5 minutes later, Bob says the same thing. 'Great idea, Bob.'" She said, "I gave up." And he said, "You are taking yourself out of the running, because if people don't have an opportunity to see your leadership in action, they cannot trust you with an important multi-million-dollar project." So in our program, I asked the people, "What is your one-word brand?" And they said, "What?" Scooby-Doo moment. And I said, "What is a word you want to be known for?" So when people say, "Oh, Sarah, you can always trust her to do what?" And if you don't have a word, you are not living up to it or planting seeds of it. Quick story about that. And then I'd love to hear your word. And I hope everyone on the call is thinking one word, how they're going to say it and how they're going to exemplify it so they get known for it and it helps them stand out instead of being one of many. I had an opportunity to work with Rod Laver, won the Grand Slam of tennis twice on Hilton Head Island. And I was in charge of the program and so forth. And we were at a meeting one time and we had run into a difficulty. We were going to have to cancel a national. He needed to let people know, etc. And he said, "Well, let's ask Sam what to do. She's always resourceful." And I said, "Wow, that really makes my day. Why do you think I'm resourceful?" And he said, "Sam, because you use the word all the time." It's like, well, we could go back and forth about what went wrong. Instead, let's get resourceful. So see, resourceful is my word. And I hope you don't say that I'm a good listener or that I'm a good team player or that, no. Those are not leadership qualities. They're important. However, they won't land you the position. So what is a proactive word where decision makers can count on you? You know what? I'm an innovator. You can always count on me to come up with a way to expedite something, to do it better, to do it faster, to do it, more efficiently or something like that. No, what's a word that people associate with you and will trust you with projects and programs and positions because you live up to that brand name?
I'm sorry if you can hear the baby in the
It's the administrative assistant.
I'm like, I'm sorry if you can hear the baby in the background, y'all. That's Ava. I was just thinking about this, and here's a question for you.
Mhm.
So, the word that you're thinking about is something that represents your hard skills,
Yes.
not soft skills.
Mhm.
And that I just want to make that clarifying point, because when I support people on personal branding and developing it and I say, "What are your skills?" Everyone says, "I'm resilient, I'm a hard worker," these pieces. And what you're kind of agreeing with is, no, people actually want to know truly, what are your hard skills? What do you do? How can you support me?
Rachel, I'm so glad that you are distinguishing that. And if you're taking notes, it is both hard skills and soft skills. And once again, we go back to Elon Musk. If people are saying, "Why should we hire you? Why should we put you in touch with that program? Why should we ask you to speak at that conference on our behalf, etc.?" is we have a word that gives people a hook on which to hang a memory, and then we give a real life example. So as a hard skill, if what we say is that you can always trust me to meet deadlines, even when we're running behind, and then you immediately give an example. Last year, we had a product launch, Q2, and there was supply chain issues and there was so forth. So I got in touch of our contact and I said, how can we expedite this? Because we made a promise to our customers that they're going to receive this on this date. And right now so give a real life example of where you have performed that and produced that. So we're not just claiming it, we're actually showing with proof of concept where we've done it.
Yeah.
Before, we can do it for them now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, probably my word would be problem solver.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's do it. Give me an example of where you solved a problem in a way that was a win for your organization. They were really grateful to you.
Yeah, most recently had some changes in our team, still on maternity leave and had to jump in while, 6 weeks postpartum and immediately step in to support the team and think about what is the best structure and how do we make sure that we continue meeting our deadlines for our clients and hire the right people, right? So that our clients and the work can get done. So I had to go immediately into my problem solver mode into how do we really keep the work going. So
good for you. Now, everyone watching, we're going to add details and dialogue, because if we give an example or a story and we don't give details and dialogue, it still sounds nice but apocryphal, or it's still vague. So if we give details, like a date, it's like, I'll always remember there was a problem. It's like we were in a staff meeting and our accountant said, well, we're way over budget. We're going to have to cut back on some team. And I'm thinking, we can't cut back on team. We need every single person on there. So do you see how with a date and dialogue and a detail, that has what Stephen Colbert calls truthiness, is now people believe this is a real life example. It's not some vague reference to something where the jury is still out. And then add one more thing. At the end of the problem that you've solved, have another detail or dialogue. Say, I'll always remember that staff meeting 3 weeks later when someone spoke up and said, I remember when we felt there was no way we could meet this deadline. We were so overwhelmed. We were being threatened of having our budget cut. And you know what? We just shipped yesterday, and I'm already hearing back from my customers about, do you see how detail, which is often dates, and put us in the scene so we can see it? We're not just saying it. And then dialogue. And all of a sudden, once again, no one else is doing that. And you will pop out of the pack instead of merge into the pack.
absolutely. What I hear you talking about really is storytelling.
Yeah.
Being a storyteller. And it's probably one of the most difficult skills for, I would say, 99% of people. But every person can be a storyteller, right? Doesn't matter what you're doing. And every person needs to be a storyteller. And some of the tools and tactics that you're talking about in this conversation is around using specific information, asking questions, using evidence. So data, which I talk a lot about that. If you're going to use, I absolutely agree. In this world, we need evidence and data, but also needs to be actually from a credible resource.
Yeah.
Just AI find something when
Yes.
you have nothing to back it up. I can't stand that. So all of these pieces help you in creating a personal brand that stands out.
I 100% agree. And I hope that everyone writes down on their notes, ink it when you think it. My secret sauce is my stories, because otherwise it's infobesity. Otherwise it just goes in one ear, goes out the other. And now here is the story behind why stories are our secret sauce. I was reading the Washington Post, and here is an article about an oil tanker that caught on fire 800 miles off the coast of Hawaii. Well, a cruise ship happened to be going by and was able to rescue the 11 people on board. And the captain gave a press conference and he said how grateful he and his crew were to be rescued. All he can think about is his dog that got left behind on the tanker. That press conference went viral. The Pacific Fleet actually changed their exercise area to search 50,000 square miles of open ocean to try and find that drifting tanker. They found it. They sent a C-130 to fly low to see if there's any signs of life. Here's this brown and white blur racing up and down the deck of the tanker. They mount $250,000 rescue mission to get that dog, and they are able to bring Get back to Hawaii. Now, fact check this. Just put into Google search Get, Hokget, and up will come the Washington Post article by Shankar Vedantam about this. Now, what's the point? Well, here's the point. Why did people from around the world mobilize to save one dog when there are thousands of people in their own cities and states and countries going without food, water, and shelter? It's because of something called the empathy telescope, which says we can put ourselves in the shoes of one person or one dog. We cannot put ourselves in the shoes of thousands. So my question to everyone watching is, what is an action you want people to take? What is a change you want them to make? What's your dog on the tanker story? Because statistics are important. However, they don't cause people to care. If you want people to care about what you care about, come up with a dog on a tanker real life story where one individual was challenged, had a problem, and how you solved it. How one client is better because of your product. How one audience is better because of your presentation. Put people in the scene and reenact it so they can see what you're saying. Now they believe what you're saying. They relate to it. They remember it. They're much more likely to act on it.
Wow. I mean, I hope everybody has been taking notes. I think what I'm really learning from you, Sam, is it doesn't need to be very complicated. And to build your voice and to create that impact, it's quite simple, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all in the words that you say, how you say it, when you say it.
And our clarity and our commitment is to have clarity right now that if we don't have a competitive edge, we can't compete. So whether we're in a corporation or an association or an organization or just as an entrepreneur within our own industry or profession, is what is our brand that we can say in one word so people decide to work with us instead of the other guys. Now, what are examples, real life stories with dialogue that show how we do that instead of just claiming it? And what are our stories about when someone at a meeting says, I'm so glad you brought that up in that previous meeting because now we changed course and we're doing that. That's a story, right? It's like you go out for a walk or a run and you think about something and you have an epiphany. That's a story. See, stories happen to us all the time. They're just real life examples that support the action we want people to take and the change we want them to make. So if we, Mary Oliver, our life, she said, instructions for a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. If we start doing that, then we start coming up with real life stories and examples that prove to people how we can show up and contribute to them in a way that's a win for them and a win for us. And that's how we stand out.
Couldn't have said anything more perfect to conclude this conversation, Sam. It's such a perfect way to think about this year, kick off January, and really, how are you using your voice? What are the words that you're saying? How are you making a difference through your stories?
Mm-hmm.
And so, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time today. Please let us know any questions, comment. Sam will definitely, both of us will take a look at those comments and get back to you. Really appreciate everybody watching and listening today. Sam has multiple books. My recommendation would be go to her LinkedIn page, go check her out, follow her, subscribe to her newsletter. And she has multiple books that can be of service to you and all of the amazingness that she's taught us here in this short time today. So thank you so much for being with us.
It's a joy. Thank you, Rachel. And I really hope that people have found this valuable and that they follow up and put it into practice and they reap the rewards as a result.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your January. And